and if we can substantiate that. The second half of the program, I'll be having doctor from CSEA speaking about the revenue shocks. If you watched the show on Monday, I did speak about the revenue crisis that Nigeria is in right now. I spoke with my guest on Monday, Taiwo Yedele from PricewaterhouseCoopers, PwC, and it is said that Nigeria is already broke. So what will happen now in the next few weeks, in June, in July, what will happen to salaries? Our states are thinking of what to do. Is even the federal government, does it have enough ammunition to be able to mitigate that? The third half, or the third part of the program, today it's another Wednesday, the CBN weekly segment where I'll be bringing you up to speed with what the central bank has been doing so far. So that's what we have for you on the lineup. Let's quickly get started by speaking to you about the developing stories. The governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, Godwin Emefiele, has urged industrial conglomerates operating in the country to support efforts aimed at growing the Nigerian economy and returning it to its glory days, even as Nigeria continues the process of full reopening of its economy due to the lockdown over the coronavirus. The governor also warned that the CBN will not support the importation of the items that can be produced in Nigeria, as the bank will not spend its foreign exchange reserves on what will not boost the economy and generate jobs for Nigerians. Meanwhile, President Muhammadu Buhari has written to the Nigerian Senate to confirm Lamido Yuguda, a former director at the Central Bank of Nigeria, as the Director General of the Securities and Exchange Commission. The president also sought the confirmation of Reginald Karusa, Ibrahim D. Boyi, and Obi Joseph as full-time commissioners of SEC. Upon confirmation, Lamido Yuguda will replace Mary Udok, who has been acting as the Director General of Securities and Exchange since April 2018. Still with the president, the president on Tuesday announced the appointment of Sule Ahmed Abdulaziz as the acting managing director of the Transmission Company of Nigeria after Usman Mohammed was sacked as the managing director of TCN. The Minister of Power, Saleh Marman, however, did not give specific reasons for Mohammed's removal, but stated that the removal is part of the reorganization of the company. All right, let's quickly take you through the market summary. Investors on the Nigerian Stock Exchange gained about 136 billion naira on Tuesday as the all-share index advanced by more than 1%. It closed at 24,000 points, as you can see right there on your screen. The year-to-date loss currently stands within 9.8%. The Johannesburg Securities Exchange in South Africa opened positive this morning as market participants monitor news on the COVID-19 vaccine. In other markets across the world, stocks traded mostly mixed as investors focus on latest coronavirus developments today as sentiments weaken. Meanwhile, hopes for an effective coronavirus vaccine has been shaken as several vaccine experts say the pharmaceutical company Moderna, which announced Monday that its potential COVID-19 vaccine appeared to be generating an immune response in human trial subjects, did not provide enough information to determine the efficacy of the vaccine. In the commodities market, all prices rising today amid signs of improving demand and a drawdown in U.S. crude inventories, but worries over the economic fallout from the coronavirus pandemic capped gains. Brent crude is trading at $35 a barrel. Don't forget that Nigeria's oil benchmark has been dropped to $25. Gold is doing $1,746 an ounce. Cocoa is trading over $2,000 metric ton. Palm oil is also within that range. All right, you can join us on all our social media platforms. You can interact with us as you see right now on your screen. On Facebook, we are there, Moneyline with Nancy TV. We post our videos. The show is also streaming live on Facebook. Yes, I think so. On Twitter, we are Moneyline TV. So drop your comment, drop your questions, drop your opinions regarding what we'll be discussing today. I told you earlier, the revenue shock Nigeria is facing, and we'll be discussing it in a bit and how we can mitigate that if there is any option for us right now. On Instagram, we're also there, Moneyline with Nancy TV. On YouTube, you can check out this edition. You can also check out other editions of the program. Watch previous editions, watch previous interviews on YouTube. Moneyline with Nancy TV on YouTube. On our website, you can check out latest updates, business news, www.moneylinewithnancy.com, and you know, see for yourself. I also need to say that the official Twitter handle for AIT is official AIT Live, not AIT Online. I see that a lot of people still make that mistake, or they still do not know. So if you want to also tweet at us, you tag official AIT Live. That is the official ID, and that is the official ID across social media platforms. Let's quickly take this break. We'll be right back and delve into our conversations, 2 of them, but I'll be starting the first one after this break. To join us again. All right, welcome back to the program. In case you're just tuning in, welcome. COVID-19 Watch. This is the segment where we'll keep you up to speed with the economics of the pandemic. We look at the business side, the financial side, as well as the economic side. Joining me right now is Honorable Ben Igbakpa, who is a member of the House of Representatives. Welcome to you, Honorable, and good to have you join me on the show today.
Good morning, Nancy.
How are you doing? Can you hear me?
I can hear you very well.
Okay. Just a few days ago, the House of Representatives, you made some allegations that some Nigerian officials signed loan documents from China written in Mandarin, that is the Chinese language. Why this allegation? Why? Is this substantiated?
Well, I don't know why people are so much interested in that part of the whole thing. What we are saying is about the loans that Nigerian government has obtained from the Chinese government, and looking at what is happening worldwide, especially in Africa, and the Chinese influence with their BRI, the Belt Road Initiative that was inaugurated in 2013 to create infrastructure in Africa and increase their influence. Today, the Chinese are almost taking part.
Okay, Honorable, if you can hear me, Honorable, if you can hear me, let's just halt a bit. Let's quickly take a break because I can hardly hear you. Let's see if we can. Okay. Reestablish that audio. Let's quickly take this break. When we come back, Honorable Ben Igbakpa will still be with me here on the program. All right, Honorable Ben Igbakpa is still joining me. Honorable, sorry for that. I couldn't hear what you were saying, so I lost the first part of what you said. Let me ask the question again. You made some allegations at the floor of the House of Representatives just a few days ago about Nigerian officials signing loan documents in Mandarin, the Chinese language. Substantiate that. Is there any, how do you substantiate that, really?
Well, Nancy, let me thank you once again. I don't know if you can hear me.
Yes, I can hear you now.
Okay. Like I said before, I don't know why so many people are interested in that part. What that actually means is the fact that it's only somebody who does not understand that will sign some of those agreements. I don't see why a Nigerian should sign an agreement for, yes, exit loan naturally is I would say project tied. When it's project specific, where is the money that you are signing the loan for? The loan is kept with the Chinese bank. This contract have no time frame. And again, where is the expatriate quota? They bring, even the driver of the executing these projects are from China. These projects are never advertised. So it's probably, they don't understand. I know very well, no Nigerian that understand the essence of being a patriotic national will sign such a project. That is why we're saying that probably they are written in Mandarin language where they don't understand. They just sign and come home and execute. Because I remember the transport minister saying that because the money is coming from China Exit Bank and the CSEA is the vehicle with which it is coming, they have 100% right of execution. And that 100% right include bringing in the raw materials, every material needed, and the personnel. Then what happened to the law of expatriate quota and our local content? So definitely, that's why I believe it is signed in Mandarin language where they don't understand. Because if you understand as a Nigerian leader who wants the growth of the nation and our economy, nobody will sign that. And those are the things we're trying to look into. We want to see what is actually happening in all the contract, the loans that we have obtained from China, especially that which has to do with from 2002 to date, not just looking at one particular one. I know this present administration has signed 17 loans from China. They are project type. We want to know the cost of the project. We want to know who evaluated the project. We want to know the period that these projects are supposed to take. We want to know how far they have gone, how many Nigerians are working there, what is the economic benefit, and if this project can actually pay for the loans.
Okay. Honorable, can you hear me?
I can hear you very well.
Okay, so I would assume that what you're saying is that because of the way these projects are executed, that perhaps it is written in Mandarin. We do not understand the full scope, not that they are documents physically signed in Mandarin language, if I get you right.
Perfect. That is it. That's
so
it.
Perhaps what some of the headlines took perhaps was, is it quoting you out of context?
Or I wouldn't say that is out of context, because what I have said, the fact that if Nancy is sitting there running this program now, and the program is supposed to be morning show, and you're coming and telling us that it's no longer morning show, it's Naira show, then something is wrong. Different from what it ought to be. It means there's a misunderstanding somewhere. I believe that the officials that signed this agreement definitely does not understand what they are doing.
What now is the problem? Why we should be interrogating Chinese loans, especially here in Nigeria? We've seen the CSEA, that is the China Civil Engineering Construction Corporation. They've been undertaking some infrastructural projects in Nigeria, not just in Nigeria, even in other African countries. Why is it necessary that we should, or the House of Representatives should begin to interrogate Chinese loans at this time?
Well, first, you remember that presently Sri Lanka, Zimbabwe, Djibouti, Zambia, Namibia, Kenya, and Angola are the verge of losing their critical infrastructure. And this is as a result of the loans that they've taken from China. The Chinese loan is what we call the popular one chance or black market loan. These are loans that are not Paris Club compliant. And you remember the CSEA company you're talking about have been blacklisted by the World Bank. And why will a company that is blacklisted blacklisted by the World Bank, who is the world-renowned financial regulator, be working with us. That's to say that if there's any misunderstanding, there's no room for any, a regulatory body that is known, that is recognized to settle dispute. We have bought a black market loan. We have the loan here. These people, they will never. They don't write off loan. They don't even review. If you have to review, you pay more. So I believe that there's a lot for us to worry as a nation, because we're talking about Kenya and these smaller countries. Nigeria is too blessed, too big. We have been so blessed by God that we cannot fall under the same category with these countries. And that is why the best time to talk about it is now. It is the Chinese people that says that the best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago, and the next time to plant it is now. We've woken up. Anytime you wake up, that is your morning. We have to look at this issue. Let's follow it up. If we had to, which I think is not necessary anymore, we need to start looking inwards to grow our economy. What we have gotten from there, we're not seeing it. Nigerians are suffering. People are on the street. They are jobless. And we have 64,500 Chinese company natives working in Nigeria under the same agreement that we signed. What happened to our expatriate quota? These are laws of the land, and they are not being respected because we are taking money from China. There are other countries that we are owing. Are they bringing all their people to work here? And somebody signed that. That is why we're saying that probably they took this loan. This loan are written in languages that they don't understand.
Now, the question is, Honorable, that why are you raising this at this time, interrogating Chinese loans in Nigeria at this time that we know that we are battling a pandemic? And just like you said earlier, most of these loans that the Chinese bring into not just Nigeria, into Africa, is part of a wide initiative. They call it, I think, the Belt and Road Initiative, to boost their own economy, I must also say, and also provide infrastructure to countries that need that infrastructure. We know what happened. Was it last year? Which year was it? China in Africa Summit, which I think our president also goes, other African presidents also approached that. Why is it this time that the pandemic is here in Nigeria and other countries across the world? And perhaps the pandemic also originated from China. So is this the appropriate time to begin to interrogate?
Yes. First, they are not just building infrastructure. They are building infrastructure to increase their influence in Africa with an intent to go one day into another set of colonization. Because I don't see, how will you feel if one day, as a Nigerian, you wake up and see that a Chinese company or Chinese government has taken part of our airport? How will you feel if you go to our port and the Chinese government and the Chinese company has taken over because we could not pay? I strongly believe that the Belt and Road Initiative of China is to recolonize part of the world. Today, you need to check this out. The northern Italy has been taken over by Chinese. Italy in Europe, northern Italy has been taken over by Chinese. We will say that these are countries that are not so blessed like us. Today, we are talking about our homegrown approach to COVID-19 cure. We should start thinking about our homegrown post-COVID-19 economy. That is why this is the right time to look at what we are doing with China and see how we can mitigate the effect, because there's no way the tsunami is going to come one day. But if we sit here, for me, as a person, a representative, and 20 years down the line, my child asked me, you were in the House of Reps when that administration took 17 loans. You were in Nigeria, you were a leader. I was in the House of Assembly and I was a commissioner in the Delta State. And you were in government all this while. And from 2002, a lot of loans came into the country. Let me tell you, Nancy, Nigeria has been mortgaged in 2038 to pay some of these loans. And if we cannot pay, that is why we're saying, let us just see the contracts. If nobody is being indicted yet. We are not indicting anybody. What we're asking for is, we are asking to know, because our constituents are asking us. We went here, a Chinese man is the driver in this company. Chinese are beginning to sell land in Nigeria. It's so bad that they are beginning to buy land, register the land in their name. And after some time, my children will go to a Chinese man to buy land to build a house in Ogara. That is unacceptable. It is time for us, the best time to start now and ask questions so that we stop the looming effect and supremacy of China over Nigeria, a blessed nation like us.
Honorable, you also have to take into cognizance that we have bilateral relationship with China as a country, you know. So will our government officials just go to China, or when the Chinese come to Nigeria, they close their eyes and they sign that contract? Having said that, the final question for you is that what kind of buy-in are you getting from the National Assembly, the House of Representatives, which you're a member, as well as the Senate, perhaps to look into some of these things which you've alleged?
Well, there are committees in place. The Committee on Treaties, Agreements, and Bilateral Relations is there. The one on Finance is there, and the Debt Management Office Committee. Those are the three committees that will be looking at these issues. We want to know, when you ask questions, it's not to indict anybody, it's not to fight anybody. By the grace of God, the House has been operating in a bipartisan manner. So we just want to know. By the time we are aware, we can go home and tell our people, yes, this loan we're taking for this is the extent this work I've done, this is what we are going to benefit, this is how far we have paid. You remember this year alone, we budgeted over 2 trillion for debt services. And we need to be careful. These loans are there. If we are going to pay, then again, some people ask, why the issue of force majeure? Force majeure is coming in because if we see, one, there's a crisis. If we're able to identify tomorrow, that is why I praise President Trump every day and the way he's fighting the source and the root of this virus. If we're able to discover that this virus came from Wuhan in China and it's actually from a lab and it's deliberately released out, then there's crisis. They will have affected us. Then we can ask for debt cancellation, not just review on that manner. Then again, if we look at it, I will say that there's fraud in it. There's irresponsibility in it. And we see that the side of China, they gave us something, a covered plate, and tell us to dictate what is inside. We can ask, well, this thing is not done in good faith. Let's see how we can do it to mitigate whatever effect that's going to have on Nigeria.
Okay, I think we'll leave it at that. We'll continue to watch, but I also want to implore you and your other colleagues that it's not just about the Chinese loans. I'm going to be talking with Dr. Adedeji Adeniran in the next interview, talking about revenue shocks in Nigeria, because perhaps we are already in a revenue crisis. We're already broke because we're going at borrowing. We've been borrowing. So what you and your colleagues should do, both at the red chamber and the green chamber, is also interrogating where some of these loans have been spent. How much have been spent? Are they really used for what they should be used for? So the National Assembly should be very vibrant, more than ever right now.
Thank you very much.
All right. I'll be speaking with Honorable Ben Igbakpa, a member of the House of Representatives. We've been looking at interrogating Chinese loans in Nigeria. So many interesting things that will come in the next few weeks and in the next few months. Let's quickly take a break. When we come back, Dr. Adedeji Adeniran, economist and research analyst with CSEA, that's the Center for the Study of Economies for Africa, will be joining me. We'll be looking at revenue shocks, the revenue crisis, Nigeria, where we are getting money from now is dwindling. Are there options for us to take advantage of? Let's see. We'll be, diving further into that discussion when we come back. Is Nigeria about to go broke? Is a revenue time bomb loading?
Yeah, I think maybe we should say Nigeria is broke already. The only reason why
I do want to raise alarm.
No, Nigeria is broke. We do not have our own money to spend. So the only reason why a country is different from an individual is you can borrow and you can also print money at some point. So technically, Nigeria does not have its own money to spend. We are relying on borrowing and all of that. So having said that, the point is, when you are in a crisis situation like this, you want to be careful the actions you take, the words you speak, and how you speak them. So people are watching what you say, as well as your body language and your actions as well.
All right, welcome back. Dr. Adedeji Adeniran, economist and research analyst at CSEA, is joining me right now via Skype here in Abuja. Dr. Adeniran, good to have you on the program. Welcome.
Thank you, Nancy. It's a pleasure to join you this morning.
Pleasure likewise. Let's get started. I started this, I will call it now a series on Monday because, of course, it's dawned on me for quite a while. This is what I do every day here on the program. That we've been going borrowing, like you heard Taiwo Yedele say earlier, what we are borrowing right now is not our money, you know. So I'm still sticking with that right now because it seems that even the government officials or even the states, workers, everyone should know what we will go into in the next few weeks. And I'm not trying to raise an alarm here, but it's about talking about the current situation, which the pandemic has also worsened. It's a different kind of crisis we are fighting, which is the coronavirus crisis. How do we navigate the revenue crisis in Nigeria right now?
Thank you for that question. I mean, before this crisis, Nigeria has already, we've discussed this on this show many times about our revenue problem. And you can see this over the past years in poor implementation of budget, whereby we budget, even though if you look at the size of government, you look at total government expenditure vis-a-vis our GDP, compare it to other countries, even in Africa, we are doing poorly in that regard. So you ask the question, this has always been a problem for us as a country. But this particular COVID-19 crisis is a double shock for us. Before, when we have problem with mostly around crashed in oil prices, we usually delved into non-oil prices. But here, oil prices are down. Our other substitute activities, the non-revenue that we can rely upon, it's also in problem because you look at the main stay of our non-oil revenue, Lagos State, Ogun State, Abuja, Kano, these are kind of the states we depend on so much. So you can see that non-oil revenue also is down. So this double shock implies a lot of challenges going forward for us in doing anything. In fact, when you look at this kind of problem, you expect a counter-cyclical kind of government spending, which by this means that you look at the aggregate demand and all the other components of aggregate demand, they are going down. So consumer spending is going down, investment is down. People are not buying from abroad and the rest. So you would not want government expenditure to go down. But given the how we get into this crisis, the fiscal space is already shrink. We're already budgeting around 2 trillion naira for debt repayment over the past year. So you ask the question, we don't actually have like the backbone to really respond effectively. And this is crystal clear when you look at government statement over the past 2 months. So you see in April, government has the plan to reduce expenditure by 1.5 trillion, around 1.5 trillion or so. But now you see the release last week, government plan to reduce expenditure by just around 71.5 billion. So that tells you that government is facing this huge dilemma. And this dilemma is one caused by our past situation whereby we're unable to, this period is actually what is called rainy days. And rainy days where you draw on your savings, rainy days where you can even go and borrow in order to sustain your economy. So it's a crisis that we've never experienced over the past years in terms of how can we look at this revenue crisis. To me, we need to look at what can we do in the immediate term and what can we do in the long run.
Okay, Doctor, let me just button a bit. We'll come back to that in a bit. What we need to do in the short to medium to long term, we'll look at that in just a bit. We just have a few minutes because I have another segment. But from your own analysis, is Nigeria broke? Let me ask you the same question I asked Mr. Oyedele of PwC. Is Nigeria broke?
Yes, obviously we are.
Oh, okay. So what's next? The crisis originated outside the real economy as well as the financial market. is it out of reach right now for our policymakers to be able to handle? You know, because take a look at what happened in 2008. The crisis came out from the financial markets. It dovetailed to other things. But now coronavirus is a different kind of crisis, like I said earlier. So how is out of reach for our policymakers, is it? So perhaps you can also dovetail to the short, medium, and long-term options that we can take advantage of, if there is any, because you said there is little fiscal space right now for us.
So if you look at in terms of can we really respond effectively, of course we are constrained by one hand, but at least we still have a lot that we can do. So one thing is, this is a kind of crisis that we ourselves try to restrict our economic activities. I mean, we try to restrain our interaction through this social distancing measure in order to ensure that we don't have a lot of health crises and we don't overburden our health system. And so you could see that one part of the strategy is first to manage this crisis in order to ensure that we move out of it without recording so much data, and we save a lot of lives, because I mean, it's not a trade-off between health and economic issue. It's something we can take one at a time. So the health challenges, how we manage it, is crucial. But in the immediate term, I think we need to look at a lot of things. One, we need to look at how do we reduce our debt repayment. I mean, we need to negotiate with people about sometimes debt forgiveness, and also about how can we suspend some of interest payment. But we need to go into this on a regional or multilateral angle. I mean, it's not like we alone going to ask for this, because there is also issue around, I mean, for the Nigeria has borrowed, we asked for forgiveness around 2004 and 2006. Again, we are asking for another forgiveness. So it tends to paint a picture that maybe we don't even have capacity for repayment in that essence. So it's better we do our negotiation on a regional basis. Also, we can tap into donor resources. You'll see a lot of countries around the globe. China just this week announces they will support countries with $1 billion to aid recovery. So we need to tap into that. I mean, it's something if crisis is created from any part of the world, I mean, we are impacted. So if any benefits coming from there, I mean, we should also take advantages of that. We also need to actually then rethink our own strategy. I mean, we can't go into this, out of this crisis without rethinking how we have been doing and how we have been operating over the past years. Government expenditure and government spending on governance, it's unsustainable in the Nigerian context. And that's, for a fact, we need to rethink about it. We need to cut down waste. For example, if you look at the NNPC account in 2018, about 150 billion naira was loss recorded by local refineries. And this is something that's been going on for many years. So you ask the question, do we need to privatize this such that we reduce this cost and we also make more money by the way of privatization? So those are kind of thinking we need to start alluding to. Because when you look at this sort of crisis, of course, the economy is going down. Then the question is, what type of recovery do you want to have? Is it a V shape? Is it a U shape? Is it an L shape? You know, V shape is you have a quick recovery. U shape is a slowdown, and L means you might have this crisis and it might be sustained because.
And there's also a W recovery. There's a W shape recovery.
So, irrespective of so the type of recovery you have is how do you think about it? Going into this crisis, our thinking is around managing things. I mean, we have been recording around 2% growth over the years, which, I mean, for economy growing more than 2.5% annually, is not something that is sustainable for us going into the future. So we need to rethink about how do we ensure we manage our economy.
Doctor,
in a
are you
more
seeing that
productive
rethinking
manner
from the coffers or from the corners of government right now? There's an economic sustainability committee headed by the vice president. There's also an economic advisory council that was put together last year by Mr. President. I've not really heard so many things coming out from there, apart from, So are you seeing that kind of rethinking? Because I've said it here several times on the show. We are fighting a war. Fighting a war from all angles. This is a different kind of crisis because we were in a very vulnerable spot even before the pandemic. This has plunged us further into the well. So there should be thinking from all sides. President Buhari should not even be sleeping because all these things is on him in terms of if we are going to go into a recession this year, which we are, perhaps, it will be 2 recessions in 4 years. That's not a good record, So what kind of rethinking? All the cylinders should be burning on all sides.
So, I mean, the kind of rethinking I would envisage is kind of very big thinking, because we talk about lack of development, the need for diversification, the need to develop our agric. These are not new things. These are things we have been discussing for 30 good years. So you ask the question, why have we not achieved it? I mean, it's not only about we know where we are going now. How do we get there has been the problem. And you cannot remove institution out of these things. I mean, if you have this lofty plan, if there is a general consensus among industry, the government and everyone about that, this is where we need to take, and we are not achieving it. I mean, you cannot, a lot of blame we have to be with what are the structure around these things. So do we need the big government size that we have? I mean, looking at National Assembly, the expenditure, do we need to spend so much on them every year? We need to cut it in this crisis, I mean, for good, but not just in this crisis. I mean, we have to cut it going forward. It's just showing that there are some spending we cannot afford as a country. Also, I mean, it's also no brainer that Nigeria is still discussing about whether joining African Continental Free Trade Agreement or not. We have only one source of exports earnings, which is oil. And anytime there is crisis there, we have crisis everywhere. So, I mean, we need to export. And this is a kind of opportunity that tells us that, wow, we can export some of our commodities to other African countries. But we are still discussing about how we will hide under our pillow, and every other African country will set the pace for us. I mean, it's not something we should be discussing here. We should be discussing how do we tap into this kind of opportunity in order to be widen our export earnings. Those are kind of thinking we need to do. We don't also need federal character in terms of development. I mean, we don't need to develop agricultural products in every state. Anybody that wants to actually tap into this kind of progress, we need to actually encourage them. It might be 1 or 2 agricultural produce that we can work on. We don't need to say, okay, let's just think big about what we need to avert this crisis. I mean, we cannot be having crisis every 2 years. I mean, no nation developed in that manner.
You've raised some salient points talking about revenue diversification. A lot of people will say that the economy is diversified, but the export base is not diversified. Some people will also say diversify the economy. I've heard different arguments. Oh, diversify the economy, diversify the economy. But if you take a look at the GDP basket, services take a higher chunk. Agriculture, I think, is next to it, and you have others. Do you think it's a problem of economic diversification, or we are not labeling it well? It should be revenue diversification away from oil, because the global markets right now are washed with oil. Oil is, this morning, I just said Brent crude $35 US, but Taiwo Yedele did tell me yesterday, Monday, that all we need to trade in the excess of $100 US for us to balance our budget. So at 35 is not Uhuru yet. We should still be hiding under the pillow, like you said, because companies and industries have not started. Airlines that need our oil, they are still grounded, trying to restart. So what should we do at this point?
For me, it's both. I mean, it's both like diversification of our export earnings and diversification of better diversification of our economy. So let me explain. In terms of diversification of our earnings, I mean, if oil is responsible for more than 80% of what we earn from foreign exchange, it's not a good thing. So we need to have more produce that we sell to the rest of the world, whereby we earn more money, and from there we have more balanced export basket. again, in terms of the diversification of the economy itself, so some people will argue that the economy is diversified. I mean, that's what the GDP numbers is saying. But if you look at the fact that given our state of development and the fact that services is quite dominant in our GDP, you can say, okay, what will be responsible for this? And I think it's cheap product from many parts of the world, China and many places around the world. So when we have this access to this cheap produce, because when you look at the services we talked about, it's not sophisticated kind of or well-developed one. It's this people trading, buying and selling sort of thing. So those are not the kind of thing that we really need. So in terms of, we need to actually reindustrialize this economy such that we go back to value addition in agriculture. Agriculture can be the base and the launching pad. We were able to build a lot of value addition around this in order to also develop manufacturing sector. And through this, we also develop service sector. It's about balancing it. I mean, if you see the quality of each of this sector, it's nothing to write home about. The service sector, even though big, you find that it's more of informal sector kind of activities. Agriculture, even though we said it's also very big, it's mostly dominated by sustenance farming. So we need a lot. We need to a lot of rethinking in terms of both diversifying our export earnings and diversifying quality in terms of the type of diversification we see in the economic broadly.
Okay, we did talk about GDP earlier, and I know that according to the timetable, normally we should have rebased our economy again. We should have rebased our GDP, because I think the last rebasing was done in 2013, if I'm not mistaken, during the Okonjo-Iweala days, and it was said then we should rebase every 5 years. 2013 plus 5, I think that's 2018, so we're 2 years late already, because perhaps if we rebase now, it would tell us a different story. Who knows? So I needed to say that. Do you have any comment on that?
So if we are to rebase now, it's a lot of, for me, a lot of issues. So it's not a good thing actually to rebase during crisis, because it would show it by, like in the last one, we have a bigger economy just because we rebased. And when you have that, it tries to introduce some overconfidence. You tend to believe you can borrow more. You tend to believe you can do more, that you have this very big economy. And maybe it introduces some kind of laxity and irresponsibility on the part of quality thinking. And so, I mean, for now, I think we should just think head on this crisis, think critically about ensuring that we are not going to be moving through this cycle that we have been revolving around over the last 30 years or so, in terms of, one crisis to the other. And every time there is oil shock, it's always a nationwide problem for us. We need to start thinking, how do we actually reduce this kind of problem? That should be the focus now. Rebasing the economy will then come after if we recovered and a lot of things has happened. Then we can start thinking about how should we go into understanding better the dynamic, because the rebasing is more of figures. Okay. In fact, authorities have a sense of what is going on in terms of maybe these activities. They know what is getting them money or not. So they have a sense of what is going on. So it's quality thinking in terms of policy that I think is the priority now.
Okay, thank you very much, Doctor. I think we'll leave it at that. I'll chat with you some more in subsequent days. Thank you very much for joining me.
Thank you so much, Nancy.
All right, let's quickly at this point take you through what I had said earlier at the CBN Weekly segment. The CBN has been so much in the news, even before COVID. I think it was the first responder, if I'm not mistaken, March 16th, if I'm not mistaken, that the CBN came out to say, okay, these are our policy measures against COVID and what have you. We know what they've been doing in agriculture. A lot of people too have been criticizing the CBN, but you're seeing what central banks across the world are doing right now in terms of monetary policy, unconventional policy tools. Let's quickly take this package from them. When we come back, I think it will be time for me to say bye-bye for today, if the time will permit. But let's quickly go there. We'll be right back.
These are interesting times. The world in turmoil, nations taken unawares, countries are on lockdown, and the global economy facing a recession as the government of Nigeria confronts the triple challenge of health, economic, and financial crisis arising from COVID-19. However, wherever we Nigerians find ourselves, at home or abroad, we adapt, survive, and thrive. The world can attest to the resilience, creativity, passion, and dynamism of the Nigerian spirit. We overcame Ebola, and we will overcome COVID-19. The Central Bank of Nigeria demonstrates this resilience and unwavering passion in the Nigerian economy to weather the storm, providing various channels and programs to support the economy for our nation to emerge stronger. In support of the policy direction of President Muhammadu Buhari's administration to revitalize the economy and preserve the livelihoods of Nigerian workers and businesses, the CBN is galvanizing critical stakeholders to sustain the administration's fight against COVID-19 by providing credit support for healthcare development, energizing small and medium businesses, stimulating local manufacturing and services across commercially strategic sectors to create more jobs, wealth opportunities, and ensure financial system stability. The bank is also prioritizing the provision of forex to boost importation of machinery and critical raw materials needed to drive a self-sufficient economy. We invite all economically active Nigerians to get on board and let's put the green back in agriculture, get our industries working, increase our local capacity to drive exports, and grow Nigeria together. Indeed, this shall be our finest hour, as we shall surprise and delight the world by steering our ship back to the straits of glory. Nigerians, dynamic, resilient, passionate. This message is from the Central Bank of Nigeria.
Borrowing a leaf from the huge successes recorded in the rice, cotton, cassava, and tomato value chains under the Anchor Borrowers Program, ABP, the CBN met with some milk importers, during which the governor wooed them to take advantage of CBN's low-interest loans to begin local milk production instead of relying endlessly on milk imports. The bank's partnership with states and private investors is beginning to yield fruits. For instance, in Niger State, the government of the day has allocated land to 4 dairy companies at the 31,000-hectare Bobi Grazing Reserve, situated in Mariga local government area. Bobi Reserve is inhabited by over 700 pastoralist families who own about 300,000 heads of cattle. Of the over 30,000 hectares of land, 10,000 hectares was allocated to Friesland Campina Wamco, while 4,000 hectares each was allocated to Chi Limited, Neon Agro, and Irish Dairy. Work by the companies is at various degrees of completion. Similarly, Arla Group in Kaduna State, Promasidor in Ekiti State, and Integrated Dairies Limited in Plateau are in partnership with the respective state governments to upgrade or develop the Damau Grazing Reserve Kaduna, the Ikun Dairy Farm Ekiti, and the Wase Grazing Reserve Jos. These revolutionary moves to intervene in the livestock dairy value chain will not only improve cattle management in the country, but will also close the supply gap of 1.2 million metric tons of milk. Specifically, it is expected that milk production will increase from 500,000 metric tons to 550,000 metric tons by January 2021.
We are saying that how much we spend importing milk is too high, we need to reduce it. We are saying that by doing backward integration, it helps to limit or reduce the rate of herders and farmers conflict in Nigeria. And we are determined to make milk production in Nigeria a viable economic proposition.
The discovery of crude oil in Nigeria led to the neglect of the farms, leading to a major decline in the production of cocoa from an average of 420,000 tons in the 1960s to about 170,000 tons in 1999. To help mitigate the challenges in the industry, the CBN has extended a total facility of 17.32 billion naira to projects in the value chain through its various interventions. The focus of the bank's intervention in 2019 was to primarily engage key stakeholders and develop a roadmap for the resuscitation of the industry. The roadmap for stimulating finance to the cocoa industry and ensuring a structural transformation of the value chain is underway, and the bank's strategy for 2020 is to collaborate with the farmers and promote the use of technology to enhance the farmers' productivity. The value chains of other commodities such as maize, poultry, fish, and aquaculture also witnessed some degree of intervention by the CBN. As part of its strategy for the poultry sector, the bank in July 2019 played host to select universities in the country to partner with them in a pilot scheme tagged University-Based Poultry Revival Program, aimed at boosting poultry production in the country through the involvement of universities. Bemoaning the estimated 1.2 million metric tons of poultry meat being smuggled into the country from neighboring countries by unpatriotic persons, the governor said the project, beyond closing the existing demand and supply gap, will raise a new crop of agropreneurs in modern poultry production. While the bank is in partnership arrangement with 12 universities across the 6 geopolitical zones of the country, 5 have been selected for the pilot phase of the project.
Those universities have already started the pilot phase. University of Ilorin, University of Science and Technology in Port Harcourt, University of Nigeria, Nsukka, ABU in Zaria, and of course the University of Agriculture in Abeokuta. So we'll be working with them to see how we can develop this value chain. The plan and the vision of the governor is to eliminate the importation of all poultry products by the end of 2023.
Although Nigeria remains the largest producer of maize in sub-Saharan Africa, churning out about 11 million metric tons per annum, the country still has a deficit of about 4.5 million metric tons, which are addressed through importation. Determined to address the demand gap through an increase in maize production, the CBN leveraged its existing relationship with the Maize Association of Nigeria, MAAN, by extending financing to smallholder farmers, in addition to engaging large-scale maize processors with outgrowers scheme, such as flour mills, Olam, Wakot, and other feed mills across the country. To fast-track self-sufficiency, the bank introduced the Maize Aggregation Scheme, MAS. This move is to enable silo concessionaires and feed millers to purchase and preserve locally produced maize from farmers. With the 8.72 billion naira approved for the finance of 53,644 farmers under the affiliation of the Maize Association of Nigeria, MAAN, in 2019, it is expected that the cultivated 62,910 hectares across 30 states of the country will yield 188,730 metric tons. The CBN also sought the collaboration of 12 river basin development authorities on the use of irrigable land in their respective areas of operation during the dry farming season. To build on the foundation laid in 2019, the bank in 2020 plans to support about 150,000 farmers to cultivate over 400,000 hectares of land with an expected yield of 4 tons per hectare in order to meet the projected production of 1.62 million metric tons by the end of 2020.
Maize is a crop that can be produced 3 times a year. And working with the river basin authorities would try and unlock that land and fulfill the vision of the governor, which is to breach that 4.5 million. And indeed, produce in excess so that we can start looking at the export market. So we're working with the river basin authorities, and in 2020 we will try as much as possible to unlock that potential. We're looking at bringing at least 200,000 additional farmers into the maize value chain.
Before now, Nigeria, in spite of its abundant water resources, had a deficit of 1.9 million metric tons of fish. This deficit resulted in a humongous import bill of $1.2 billion. To address this, the CBN had to extend a facility to the fish value chain amounting to 21 billion naira. These funds were disbursed to 40 companies and 2,950 farmers. Thanks to the interventions, the sector now has an annual increment of 200 metric tons, mainly from aquaculture. It is expected that the objectives of boosting fish production by 600,000 metric tons in 3 years, improving local production of fish, and reducing import bills will be met.
Another aspect of our 5-year plan when it comes to promoting local production of goods for export is based on our slogan, PAVE, P-A-V-E, which means produce, add value, and export. And in this process, we want to also provide access to finance for Nigerians who are local producers of exportables. And so the aim is to enable them produce the best kind of products, and so to package them. So we also need to finance the packaging. When they package them, they export and then return foreign exchange.
It is worthy of mention that under the leadership of Godwin MF,
All right, that's the much we can take for that package. We'll bring you definitely that package again subsequently next week, another CBN Weekly. Okay, I can see Hadiza Aldu in the news. I can see Hadiza Aldu in the news studio. Hadiza, are you ready? Take it away from me. I am Nnaji. I'll see you all tomorrow, God willing. Continue to be the best version of yourself.
Nancy, thanks very much indeed for holding up for us on COVID-19 for today, and welcome to the newsroom. My name is Hadiza